This is Punk Rock and Politics, and today is February 13th, 2018, and this is episode number 54. Let's do this!
These days are strange, it's true.
I would bomb the shit out of them.
If you think that punk rock doesn't mix with politics, you're wrong.
Welcome to Punk Rock and Politics. Today we'll be talking with vocalist Christian Bragg from the UK-based band Kids on Bridges about President Trump, Brexit, and Jeremy Corbyn.
But on the other hand of it, I don't know, you'd probably happen to end up voting Labour. But again, Jeremy Corbyn's a great guy, but he would take us back to the draconian times.
All that and more on today's episode, so let's get to the political mosh pit. But first, here's the news of the week.
Here's what's making news.
The Winter Olympics have started in Pyeongchang, South Korea, and North Korea is allowed to compete in this year's games, in a rare opportunity to use diplomacy and sports as a way to avoid war. What a concept, and best of luck to everyone from all countries competing. Rand Paul forces a government shutdown due to the spending in the budget continuing resolution that will keep the government funded for 2 more years. Here's Rand Paul during his filibuster.
Today, the Senate will vote on a bill that will add $1.5 trillion to the debt over the next 10 years. This is a large amount of money and something that we should be very wary of. And this new stimulus of deficit spending will be as big as President Obama's stimulus. Don't you remember when Republicans howled to high heaven that President Obama was spending us into the gutter, spending us into oblivion? And now Republicans are doing the same thing. And so I ask the question, whose fault is it? Republicans? Yes. Whose fault is it? Democrats? Yes, it's both parties' fault. You realize that this is the secret of Washington. The dirty little secret is the Republicans are loudly clamoring for more military spending, but they can't get it unless they give the Democrats welfare spending. So they raise all the spending. It's a compromise in the wrong direction. We should be compromising in the direction of going towards spending only what comes in.
And the government is back open. Just after a few hours, Congress approved the continuing resolution that will keep the government funded for 2 more years. The CR does not cap military or domestic spending, but the CR does not include DACA, which Democrats insisted on being included in the previous CR and was the reason the government was previously shut down about a week ago. Education Department says it will not act on transgender bathroom complaints, which is a slight pullback from the Obama administration's Education Department that said they would look into the issue of students being discriminated for using the bathroom of their gendered identification. President Trump was so inspired in France with the Bastille Day parade that he proposed the idea of the United States having a national military parade. Where have I seen this before? And President Trump is expected to propose cutting entitlement programs by $1.7 trillion. This will include Medicare in order to build a border wall, improve veterans' health care, and combat opioid abuse. And on this day in rock history, February 13th, 1961, Henry Rollins was born. And of course, Henry's best known for being the lead vocalist from Black Flag and all-around badass. Happy birthday, Henry Rollins. And that's the news of the week! What's up, my fellow political junkies? Running and producing a podcast is kind of like running a band in the regard to networking. Networking and working with other bands, or in our case, other podcasters and bands, is a huge component in making any band or podcast successful. And that's how today's episode is unique. The band we'll be featuring on today's podcast was a recommendation from Vile Assembly, who we had on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast just a few episodes back. So, like Vile Assembly, today's featured band, Kids on Bridges, is also from the UK. But an even cooler fact is that Vile Assembly and Kids on Bridges will be visiting California to play a few shows. Kids on Bridges is an electro-pop band that utilizes the synth. Their music is a flashback to the 80s with their beats, but the overtones and solos have a contemporary sound. But the cool thing about Kids on Bridges is that they aren't just another pop rock band. They have deep, thought-provoking lyrics and song titles, which you wouldn't expect just from hearing their music. Some of their lyrics and song titles are so thought-provoking that they've even been called pop terrorists. This, among many other reasons, is why I am very excited to talk with the lead singer Christian Bragg from the band. But before we get to the interview, let's check out one of their songs. Here's Sport for Kings by Kids on Bridges.
It's a spot for kings. No one ever wins. souls and so young, the soldiers holding to the game. Their blood is thicker than oil. We bury our heads in the soil.
And that was Sport for Kings by Kids on Bridges. And I have the lead vocalist from the band Kids on Bridges, Christian Bragg, here with us on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast. What's up, Christian?
Hey, Michael, absolutely delighted to be invited onto this show. Fantastic. Love checking it out. So, yeah, all good here in England. A bit wet and cold, but, you know, that's as it always is.
Right. Well, that's why it's so pretty and green, though, you know.
Well, I suppose it is, yeah. But it's never sunny. You know what I mean? It's always this time of year, always a little bit cold and damp. Mm-hmm. But, you know, all good. Can't complain.
Hey, well, when you guys come out here in a few months, actually, down here to Southern California, you'll get plenty of no rain and lots of sun. So you'll get a nice change up. So you guys are located and based out of the UK, like you're saying, but you're coming out here with another band that we know quite well here on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, we're from Liverpool, and we'll be heading over with a great band, as you mentioned. You know, you're aware of them, Vile Assembly. So we're hoping to do maybe 4 or 5 shows, starting around about the 28th or 29th of April. One at SIR Studios, then maybe the 5th of May at the Viper Room. Maybe getting a show at San Diego wrapped up as well, and then hopefully do something with yourselves. If we can pitch it all together. The lads from Vile Assembly doing phenomenally well in the States. You know, it's proper music that says something, and I think people are resonating to it at the time's right. I mean, we started with our campaign about a year ago with songs like Bankers to Feed and Sport for Kings, and people were just not really interested. They were saying it was too political for radio, but now there's been an upturn in it, which is very positive. I think people are just generally fed up of sugar-coated music, or music that's saying nothing. And then the band Vile Assembly, it's just like somebody threw a hand grenade in the room and walked out when you listen to their music. It's phenomenal. So delighted to be teaming up with them on a couple of shows. And we've worked in the same studio as each other, so we're quite aware. So it's great that Liverpool is producing these bands, and you know, we're fortunate enough to come to America to come and play these songs. Yeah,
just like you said, Vile Assembly, they're great. So we want to give a big shout out to Vile Assembly, and you're right. I like their lyrics, and like you said, a hand grenade going off in the room, and then because it's definitely a slap in the face with the lyrics. Content is right in your face, and it's all out there. And Paul, the vocalist, he's very upfront about how the band is a political statement, not so much like a band. And I thought that's a really cool idea, you know.
Well, I think the idea of what the music they do is like Paul will say, it's you can hear the music anywhere, that the music that they do and the lyrics are phenomenally, detailed and very relevant. But Paul says, you can find music anywhere, but it's given a voice to people to think about other stuff and what's really going on with the world. And Vile Assembly, is a backdrop for that. And, Kids on Bridges, lyrically, we were very matter of fact, just observational. And, just trying to say it like it is, really. And, for a while you get silence. We originally called Pop Terrorists because our first song was called, like, Why Don't You Fuck Off? You know what I mean? and it was on, I don't know if they know the TV show, The In-Betweeners. It was used in that, and it kind of resonated from there. And then we did a song about the anti-X Factor or American Idol in America. And that caught fire. And we managed to get signed at that point, because we were just saying things as we've seen them. But Vile Assembly, if you get a chance to see them or check them out, the new single, Division of Labour, is phenomenal. It reminds me of the Pearl Jam track, Do the Evolution meets the Sex Pistols. Great, love it.
Yeah, meets the Sex Pistols. Pearl Jam meets Sex Pistols.
Meets the There's a guitar break in it, and it just reminds me of Do the Evolution. I think, wow, but I say it's so powerful. And it's doing really well in the UK as well. It's really catching fire. So.
Yeah, and I think I've kind of noticed that too. A lot of people, if you look back in the past, back to the 60s and, the great, when all the really big Bob Dylan and the Beatles and a lot of the bands they were getting political, but they couldn't be too blatantly political in your music. You had to kind of be subtle. But have a political statement. But now it almost kind of seems like, but now people don't even do that or didn't want to do that for the longest time. I don't know what it was, but yeah, you're right. A lot of more political, socially aware bands are coming back. And I'm, here on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, I'm personally stoked because then it gives more bands to talk to. And I think it's always good to get people thinking. So, let's check out one more song. But before we do that, actually, like you're saying, I just want to say one more time, you're going to be here in the States around, it was the early May, I believe, or the very end of April to mid-May. End of April
through to, about the 6th of May, I believe. Yeah. So hopefully we'll get 4 shows in the California region. Perfect. So we absolutely can't wait.
Yeah, and I'm going to be at some of those shows. So and I'll definitely be plugging them and sharing them on the Facebook page and everything. So if anyone's hearing this.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and if you're in the Southern California area, go to the Facebook page or Kids on Bridges website. And then let's go to one of the shows and, say, what's up here, America style, So
Definitely. And then, if you come to one of the shows and you say you've heard us, on Punk Rock and Politics, we'll give you a free CD if you still like CDs.
Yeah, I know people are still using CDs. Hey,
what's a CD? Is that a coffee coaster?
Hey, I've gone to a few shows recently, and I've gotten a cassette tape and a VHS player. So a CD would be awesome at this point.
Yeah, fun. I bought a Mute Mask cassette the other day. You know what I mean? It's like that. I actually got hold of a cassette that was made up.
Yeah, that's the new thing. It's kind of cool. I like it. But speaking of political music and everything, this is a perfect song, I think, that you were mentioning earlier. Here's Bankers to Feed by Kids on Bridges.
Greed. Think of my house, think of my
the poor? Who stole the money? Who stole the cash? Who hit the reddies? Who's got the stash? Who stole the money? Who's got the stash? Who's got the reddies? The dirty filthy cash. Where did all the money go? Where did all the money go? Where did all the money go? It's lining someone's pockets. Where did all the money go? Where did all the money go? Where did all the money go? It's lining someone's pockets. Who stole the money? Who stole the cash? Who hit the reddies? Who's got the stash? Who stole the money? Who's got the stash? Who's got the reddies? The dirty filthy cash. Who stole the money? Who stole the cash? Who hit the reddies? Who's got the stash? Who stole the money? Who's got the stash? Who's got the reddies? The dirty filthy cash.
All right, and that was Bankers to Feed by Kids on Bridges, and that's a awesome song. It's I wouldn't expect those lyrics in that title kind of with that music. I think that's why they called you, what was it, pop terrorists or something?
Pop terrorist, yeah. You know, it was like I don't know, it's like an electro version of the Clash or In Excess, but with with a more serious lyric, not than in the Clash, but with an In Excess vibe. You know what I mean? And it was very honest. It was a song that I really wanted to write as well.
Yeah, I digged it. It's something that when you hear it, you wouldn't expect meaningful lyrics. You just expect some super, boppy.
Yeah.
But I have a really deep spot down deep for really catchy pop music. So I always feature everything on here. So I'm really happy you guys were coming on the podcast. So let's get to the political mosh pit. The favorite part of the favorite part of the podcast for me. But you were talking earlier, what are we going to really address and everything? And one thing that came up, of course, I think always is Trump. So I always am very interested because I know how everyone here in America views Trump, but I'm always super interested as how people from other countries view him.
I mean, where do we begin? I mean, it's without like wanting to insult, the American public. For me, it's almost like it's got to be a joke that he's in charge of probably the most powerful country in the world. I would say he's everything wrong about human society. He's just, obviously I don't know the man personally, but he's somebody I wouldn't want to know. It just baffles me that he got into power, and I don't think he actually expected to get in, Michael. Yeah. I think he's got in, and he's like a petulant child, just bullying, doing whatever he wants, and getting away with it. And nobody can really cut him down because of the way he acts. He's got no regard for anything past or present. And the only positive I can see coming out of it, it might shake up the political landscape around the world for whatever comes next, because I'm guessing it was stick and twist for America when it comes. It's very similar to the UK. Mm-hmm. We almost had Boris Johnson and Cow, which would have been awful. And it's no better. You know what I mean? But
Theresa May, but better than Boris Johnson, yeah, for sure.
But really no better. It's just like, for me, white elitists taking us back to the 80s, keeping power, and he's just a rich, powerful man with no regard for how the average person lives their life. And I honestly can't believe that there's people who believe in him. It's like if you looked in the dictionary and looked under fraud, it'd say Donald Trump. You know what I mean? How he's got away with it is beyond me.
The craziest part about that too is what you're just saying is the majority of people not the majority of people who voted for him, but really his solid block was the lower class, working industrial, like white working industrial family. And a lot of these people have lost their jobs, their income has gone down since the 80s. Really, a lot of the problems that they're facing, that they're upset about, was caused because of Reaganomics in the 80s. And now they're thinking, oh, we're going to vote for Trump, who's basically Reagan 2.0, just way worse. They're going to vote for him, thinking he's going to come and save them. So it's kind of crazy because it's like, well, you know, you can't repeat this process again. And the only major legislation that they've gotten through is the tax cuts. And have you read or heard anything about the tax bill?
No, I kept seeing little things about it, but from an American point of view, I was seeing that people were pleased with it, and I was seeing a lot of articles of people saying he's done more than Obama's done, you know, because of this stuff. And I was thinking, it just, like I said, I go back to what I said before, Michael. It was stick and twist, and I understand when you're in a desperate position, you think something's got to be better than repeating the same thing over and over. As they say, that's the first sign of madness.
Yeah.
But in the same sense, he's not come in and embraced it, you know, and gone as a sensible human being. Like I said, he's just like a petulant child going, I'll do this, I'll do that. And whether he's actually doing anything or just seeing how far he can push things is another matter. The fact he was going to build a wall or suggested building a wall, it's just laughable, you know.
Well,
and
that's still up in the air. I mean, that's what they're really kind of working on right now is the immigration bill, and they're trying to put the wall in the immigration bill, and essentially they're kind of trying to use DACA, which is their children who were brought here under the age of 18, and a lot of them were 1 or 2 years old when they were brought here, and now they're 18 or 20 or 30, and they're not citizens. So it's basically to get them to become citizens, but he's kind of holding DACA. They've been holding DACA like hostage a lot to get these things. And I mean, at the end, will they get the wall? I don't know. But you're right. The fact that he's saying he's going to get a wall, and then during the campaign, this is a perfect example of sticking it to him. And you, like you were saying, is he was saying that Mexico was going to pay for it the whole time. But now that's not the case. They're not. No. You know, that's like that.
The reality is that's never going to happen. You know, and surely there's much more pressing issues in the country than building a wall. You know, it's like in England, if we go on to Brexit later, we spent years of educating children to be multicultural and embrace it. And now it's like all of a sudden we're trying to turn the clock backwards and separate. And I just can't see it could do any good. You know, you'd be much better spending the time on banning guns or putting money into hospitals or getting people real jobs and careers. It just baffles me. It just baffles me, Michael.
I agree. It's I heard a lot of people, I think it was Chris Hedges, who was saying it, but a lot of people have been repeating this, is empires in decline always go to nationalistic type rhetoric.
That's what I think. You know, it's like a way of hiding their failings, and it's like to keep us. Let's get back in power. Put the white elitist, rich businessman back on the agenda, top of the table, and we'll drop the crumbs to you again because you're getting too powerful. And that is the rhetoric, and you can see it happening all over. And from a little boy, it's like going back to the 80s under Thatcher, and everything's becoming grim and cold, and you're like separational, you know, segregation. I think, you know, how is this being allowed to happen? I just don't get it. But the man's obviously being fortunate. He's clever. With his business, but he's very uneducated, and to run a country like America and do the things he does on Twitter, I just think it's a joke. You know, I can't believe America was that desperate. Yeah. You know, and like I said, the only thing I can think could possibly come of it eventually is it will change how American government and policy run in the long run.
You know, if it changes it for the worst, because now we're going to lower the bar so far.
Well, yeah.
Lower, or maybe this is like a lot of people were saying and doing, is a Molotov cocktail in the system. Trump is almost, you know, just a big fuck you the political system, really, and that's
Well,
why
yeah.
they voted for him. And I mean, that's a nihilistic way of looking at the world, but I get it. I do.
I get that as well.
I wouldn't do that, but I get it. Yeah.
But it might, like you said, there might be a fraction of it that comes through, like positive, like moving forward. Where people go, you know what, we have to think the public voted this last time, so maybe this red tape that we always put everybody through, we don't. Maybe that's the only thing positive that Trump can bring to his administration. But I find it scary as a human being in 2018 that he is president of America, because he's dangerous. He's unskilled in the world of politics, and the most powerful country in the world have voted him in. And I can only, like I said, put it down to stick or twist. Is the Clinton administration was not inspiring the world, but it was like a safe bet, and Trump was like a wild card.
Yeah, exactly. And, and that was the thing that Obama, I go back to Obama, he had an opportunity. He could have been a transformational president, one of the most amazing, best presidents ever. After the 2008 financial collapse, prosecuted the bankers, go and, like you said, instead of using all that money to bail out the bankers, using that money to stimulate our economy and, build hospitals and schools. He could have done that, but he didn't. And I think that's kind of why people just don't trust the political establishment. And he went in there on hope and change. So, and whenever I talk to anyone over from the UK or really in other countries, the political identity world really mirrors it with here. And so over there you have right now Theresa May kind of with this blah liberal type, Obama,
it's like
over there you have Tony Blair basically.
Yeah, well, that's it. She's one step away from Tony Blair.
Exactly.
Know what I mean? It's almost like a Labour Conservative kind of. It's just nothingness, and there's going to be no change. It's just keep job for the boys, really, keeping them all in power, and nothing will really change. And I think that's maybe why America voted for Trump. And you can understand that, but the consequences of that decision, or the consequences of it being allowed to get to that stage, could be catastrophic in the long run for everybody.
Yeah, well, not even in the long run. I mean, right now they're talking about doing a bloody nose strike on North Korea, which this would be not enough to destabilize the country, just enough to let them know we mean business. It's like, what are they thinking? I mean, so that could be a quick problem. But a lot of these slow declines, like you said, or you're referring to, are the dismantling of the EPA, putting in a lot of far-right judges who are going to have a lot of implications going forward. Repealing a lot of these regulations, whether it's, with the banking industry or whether it's with, the financial industry in general. So yeah, these are going to be long-term implications. But like I was saying, you kind of see these knee-jerk nationalist type reactions with Trump, and then over there with Brexit. And I'm always fascinated with Brexit because I remember listening to like some right-wing talk radio. I always listen to right-wing talk radio because I want to kind of hear what they're saying, what their talking points are. And I would listen a lot, and they had some people on from the UK on the radio here. And, I had a feeling, I was like, you know what? I think Brexit might actually pass for it. Cause it's that fear of what's happening isn't working. So we're going to try something else. Even if this might be the wrong thing and it might fuck everything up, whatever. We're that desperate. So I love hearing, people over in UK. What's your opinion on Brexit? Tell me.
Well, I mean, I was dead against it, even within my parents, because obviously what happened was an older generation voted for it to happen, and which I found was quite ironic to the word that, they originally voted for to be in the EU and for all this to grow, and educated us to be multicultural, as I mentioned before, and embrace different cultures. And then all of a sudden they're pulling the rug from under the next generation. Wow. And I just don't think any good can come of it. I can understand somebody wanting a country to have an identity and be patriotic, but not at the cost of alienating families that have grown up here. And I think people, when it comes to the vote, were really misinformed about what it was they were voting for. And I think people were generally voting for a race card, and it wasn't about the EU. And when you pull the facts down about why we were leaving the EU, the EU, yes, it's crooked, but it's a crooked structure that ultimately was working for all countries involved. In, it might not work for you 1 month, it might work for Germany the next, but ultimately it worked. Everybody got a bit out of it. It prevents wars, you know what I mean? And I think as the EU starts to crumble, it'll be each for their own, and you'll start to get war and power trip. And I just don't think anything good can come of it. And I don't think people over a certain age should have been allowed to vote, because it's affecting a generation. It'll affect a generation from that.
You can't not let people vote. I mean, I have that idea has come to my mind a few times. I'm like, well, if these guys are going to be dead in 4 or 5 years, how are they voting for something that's
my point. That's going to affect,
I know.
And they'll say, we're wiser, we've got knowledge, but your wiseness and knowledge put us in this place in the first place. But you can't. But as
we have to take the moral high ground, and we can't. Actually, I think it was like the last podcast we were talking about how here in America, people in prison, they can't vote, which I think that's cool. I think if you're in prison, you should even be able to vote. It's just one vote. Why not?
Yeah, I just felt so strongly about ashamed to be British at that point, and like I said, it's. Whatever political party you were voting for at that point, it didn't come down to that to me. It just come down to good humanity, being, and you didn't need to be clever. You could see this bears no good. And like I said, you could have been Conservative, Labour, Liberal. It wasn't about that. It was just about a decision of right or wrong. And like I said, no good comes from it.
What about the Remain camp? Did they not have a good enough campaign and they kind of just expected to win? Because wasn't the Remain, that was up in the polls pretty much the whole way through, wasn't it?
Yeah, they you know what? They thought they were calling a bluff by having the vote. Yeah. They thought that it was never going to happen.
Yeah, because they called the vote. They didn't even have to call
it. They called it. And that's my point. It's like maybe when the world's in a stable condition and everything's flowing, maybe it's something they could have looked at if people were really feeling that patriotic. But they called it. And they had no plan for it. If it happened, hence, they didn't win. And they all left. To no consequence. It's like, oh yeah, okay, we're getting off now. Yeah. And all of them, and that's not even being questioned, Michael. You think, what? If any role that you did as a job or business and you called this and it went pear-shaped, you'd be held accountable. And they've all just gone, oh yeah, I'm going to go be a lecturer now. Yeah, I'll resign as the prime minister. Uh-huh. And it is laughable. And the campaign, like Michael Gove did with we're spending this much, we'll give it to the nurses. It was broadcast on telly, and it's like fraud. They put it there, they lied on telly. If I was to do that, I'd be put in prison for it. And I just can't believe that the public were duped to that degree. The
Brexit campaign, they were lying on TV, is what you're saying.
Yeah, everybody was. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, yeah, that's politicians.
But it's for people, for people to not be able to see that. I mean, to me, it was just common sense. And they were saying, oh, well, we put this much money into the EU, but they forgot to mention by putting that much in, they were tripling that amount daily, what they were making off it. Yeah. And we're just a weaker country now. We're a country that doesn't really produce. We're one of the biggest importers of stuff. So we've got no export. I don't know what we're basing any of this on. And it's just, it's almost as it's a little bit like America. It's a distraction to hide failed policies of the past, and we'll just brush them on. It's like with the Conservative Party. It's like, I know people who had a job in radio 10 years ago, and they had to have a reduction when the recession, and the bankers said, if you want to keep your job, you lose 15% of your wage. Right. And 10 years on, they're still on that same wage, and it doesn't get mentioned that, there was an economic upturn. The companies are still earning a little bit more than they were, but you're still on the same wage, and we've got to bite the bullet. And these rich politicians are telling us how to cut your cloth accordingly, while they're spending more on the dinner.
Exactly. It's so true. Also, you have everyone, you get certain people, the lower end, people fighting against each other. Because here we have a big fast food workers are trying to get a $15 minimum wage here, which, realistically, even $15 an hour working full time here in America, some places you'll live pretty good, but Southern California, probably wouldn't even be able to make it on $15 an hour full time. But what happens is the paramedics, they're saying, hey, I only make $16 a minimum wage, or $16 an hour. Why would a burger flipper get 15? Or a construction worker saying, I only get 15. Why would they get? It's like, dude, you all are getting underpaid. Stop fighting each other. Look up. It's those people who are getting all the pay, not you guys. You're fighting each other. It's like, why?
That's what they want.
Yes,
they want to keep people suppressed. Exactly. They want people to flip burgers and fighting each other, and it is a distraction. It's like Trump's in with the Russians, whether they're clearing his debts or something to put him in power. They'll start to infiltrate American banking, American economics, and I honestly believe that.
Let's go more into that, because I personally, I really don't think the Russians have control of Trump or anything. I mean, me personally, I haven't seen any evidence that has shown that. So I want to get your take on that.
Well, a lot of the stuff we hear in England, is that the Russians have been jumping in bed with him, and some of the things I hear just it makes sense, because I probably believe he was a broken businessman to a degree. I don't think he was as affluent as many thought. And I think, the way he operates his business, I'm sure he's done a deal. And like I said to you a little bit earlier in the interview, didn't expect to win. And I think he thought somebody in the Russia back room has gone, we can, help you if you help us. And slowly but surely over the next 10 years, I think you will see massive Russian businesses in America, or fronted, by American companies, but invested by Russians. I really do think Trump's in bed with them. I think it's just the beginning. And I think he's a bad egg. I really do.
So you think it's more of a equal type business opportunity for him?
Yes.
More than a blackmail type extortion.
Yes. I don't think he ever thought he was going to win. Right. And he's seen it as a business opportunity. Yeah. And obviously with that, there's an element of corruption, you know what I mean? And as I think I said to you, I'm a liberal anarchist. I hate corporation. I hate corruption. I like the underdog, but I can't respect authority, or if you can't trust them. And I can't trust I couldn't trust the UK government. And I couldn't trust Donald Trump with anything. The man, from his locker room scandals to what he said about the Republicans being dumb. And he's the American president, and people trust what comes out of his mouth. And he has things shut down. Like he'll say, "Oh, it's all fake news." If it doesn't suit him, it's fake news. John Mellencamp kneels down. Oh, he's not being patriotic. John Mellencamp was making a statement because he's, everybody's a peaceful statement, but Trump tries to turn it round to his benefit. The guy, the hypocrisy of it is what I've just said. He's in bed with the Russians. He's the last person that should be calling being patriotic, because he's anything but patriotic.
Right. Well, you know, I like I said, I don't know either way until I see more evidence saying one way or another. Then I'll go on.
I just think, Michael, you couldn't trust him. You just couldn't trust him.
Of course not. I mean, it's like look at his policies. Look what he's saying. And there's a few things that I was like, okay, well. At least, okay, well, first, the symbols, like you're saying, the kneeling during the flag, or putting your hand over your heart, or whatever bullshit these right-wing conservatives want to complain about, you know? Like, or burning the flag, whatever. Who gives a fuck? But you know what it is? You know what it is? It's the nationalistic mentality. It's that declining society that they're in. And if they have to be, you love the police, you have to respect authority, you have to respect these symbols that, you know, represent America. And if you don't respect those, well, you're a threat to our system. Which, if he does come out, he's Russian or connected to Russia, that would be mind-boggling to take that stance and then
but like I said then, Michael, you can't respect what you don't trust, and I think that's the biggest problem. Like you said then, it's almost like when he's giving people a free pass to start this white supremacy, as has Brexit in the UK. It's like it's gone back to the 80s, and that's what really worries me, and people are buying into it. It's a free pass that we can give Mexicans, Africans a hard time, and in England, we can give the Indians and Muslims a hard time because we had Nigel Farage and UKIP, and I just think, what's going on here? The world has gone.
That Trump he retweeted that one. I don't know what her name was, but she was a far right like political leader on Twitter, and it was some videos of some Muslim people like breaking a Mother Mary statue or something, and Trump retweeted this as president. And everyone, do you remember? This was a couple of months ago, but in now political world now, it seems like eternity ago.
But that's what I mean. If you're president, I don't even mean retweeting that. You shouldn't be retweeting things like that for a start. Like I said, I go back to he's like a petulant school child with delusions of grandeur, and he's getting away with it. And that's what really bothers me. Like, and I, as an English person, when I see school children being shot by guns, and I think, really, why can't that get solved? Is it that difficult to say no more guns? But the politics is so skewed that it's not even an issue.
Mm-hmm. No, here, as we slowly slip further, or our country down to obscurity, or not to obscurity, as our country slowly goes down to the rest of the level of the rest of the world, people they're having a wake-up call, and they're starting to realize that this dream or lie of this American exceptionalism isn't really the truth. Or maybe it was, but it's kind of over now. Now we're just that's why Trump, we're going to bring back the jobs. We're going to bring this back. Because who wants to make an iPhone for $5 a day here working in a sweatshop? No one wants to do that. And no one wants to pay $10,000 for an iPhone, by paying fair wages. So what are we going to do? That cat is out of the bag. But his followers totally believe him. So well, that's the thing. It's like, I've been fortunate enough to visit America a lot of time, and I love the country and I love the people, but I was baffled, and I said I can only put it down to it was stick or twist, and people were just so fed up. But how it's got to that stage that he has become the candidate is, again, that's what's concerning. Because he cannot be the leader of the most powerful country in the world. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And our government, using the word government, it's I don't know, it's poor. I'm doing the word government an injustice by saying they are, because they're I don't know. They're one step up being the Nazi Party. They're terrible. They're ridiculous. And Theresa May was part of. She wanted to remain. Mm-hmm. At the time, and now she's running the government. That's leaving. You know what I mean? And
I wouldn't be surprised if there was another vote. Now people have kind of gone, oh, we've made a mistake, but then
yeah, because it doesn't seem like Brexit's gonna go through because they keep pushing it back, and they said they might do another vote.
But it's because, Michael, nobody, like I was fortunate enough to be privy to a week of politics shows, and I met 3 conservative politicians, and they all, hand on heart, said, we don't know what the policy is, we don't know what the plan is, we didn't have one, didn't expect it, so, but like I said before, they duped the public into it, and yeah, but like I said, but on the other hand of it, I don't know, you'd probably happen to end up voting Labour, but again, Jeremy Corbyn's a great guy, but he would take us back to the draconian times. I don't know what the answer is.
I was just going to ask you before, as we wrap it up and everything, because, I always try to bring it to a positive note at the end here. And, it looks like Bernie Sanders is trying to do a 2020 run here. And I always kind of compare Bernie and Jeremy Corbyn have a lot of similarities. So
they do.
Yeah. Do you think Jeremy Corbyn, is he going to, he's obviously going to represent, Labour, but you don't think he's a big enough change, or what?
No, I think he's got the people on the side, but again, I just think some of his policies are draconian, but he's a good man at heart, and I like that. But I think he needs somebody who's a little bit more astute and a little bit more future or forward thinking, should I say? But I like the compassion, I like the humility of the man, but I find myself going, who would I vote for? I have no idea. And like I said to you, I'm a liberal, but I wouldn't tick that box. Yeah. I don't even know what they stand for anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a liberal, and I couldn't stand Hillary Clinton. No. Or that group, because to me, Hillary Clinton and George Bush and Bill Clinton and basically Obama, and Tony Blair, these are, and Cameron, yeah. They're all basically the same. They're all the same.
They are, yeah.
There's no difference, really.
It just comes down to it's like accountants playing God, and it's all about making money. And the act of you're representing your country to do good for your people seems to be lost. It's all about having as much power and as much money, and not filtering it through to the people, and repeating the same things, making sure you've got the oil, you've got the gas, whatever. And there just seems to be no change. But I would love Bernie Sanders. It'd be great if it was Jeremy Corbyn, but with, I don't know, maybe some more youthful experience with them.
I was just gonna say that I love Bernie. He's like my favorite. I was 100% Bernie. I still support him, but I'm like, I think he would be fine age-wise, but a lot of people are going to look at his age and say, I don't know. And I think you're right. We need fresh, forward-thinking, young-thinking people who have grown up with computers, and that's all we know. And they see it around. They know the future. Someone who's been influenced by Bernie Sanders and George.
That's it. Somebody needs to hold court with them for a couple of years and learn the knowledge, like the Last Jedi. Pass it on to them.
I've seen so many cool memes of Jeremy Corbyn as a Jedi.
But that's what it needs. Even if they did a year and I had somebody next to them learning the ways, and then and Jeremy and Bernie learning off them as well, just like how we get it out there, how we get the message and get a bunch, because it's so important, politics, but people are getting disillusioned, that they don't believe in it anymore, and it's a shame because, Paul says, we're all fortunate to have a voice to write music and say these things, and I'm not saying I'm right, you know what I mean? There's a lot of things that all parties do without wrong and that, but it's so important, and I just think it comes down to good and bad decisions for humanity. Just do good things for people, and I think the average person on the street wants the same things, but the powers above us force us, like you said before, into arguing with each other, force you into a corner, force you into frustration, and the other elephant in the room I find would be religion. You know what I mean? If the people, are dying over in God's name, and that's never what it was intended to be. Me being a liberal anarchist, I think politics, religion needs to be ripped up and started again. And I think that's the only way the world will evolve, and pulling the EU apart.
Right. Oh, geez. I was saying symbols earlier, religion. I mean, this is a whole nother podcast episode, but talk about symbols. That's religion. They love their symbols too.
Yeah, they do, and I think it's all getting lost though in the basic concept. Is if you just do good for somebody, if everybody was doing a little bit of good, then the gripes wouldn't be. It's still going to be hard times, but you've got to start somewhere. And unfortunately, Brexit and Trump are just, to me, a step back to very, very worrying times, very bad times, and and just hopefully, like you said, it gets so bad. People go, you know what? We voted for that. It was terrible. We need to rethink this. Because I don't think anything good can come of Trump. I'm not. Again, that's not disrespecting the American public, because there is two sides to every story. I don't live in America, but from an outsider, I just think ridiculous decision.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous, and I think a lot of people are starting to regret it, but we will see in really 2018 with the midterms, and then coming up in 2020. So we'll wrap it up here, but you're going to be...
Well, but the other thing I'd say, he is really alienating the world against America.
Well,
and that's it's like, I remember, I think there's a couple of bands.
But the thing is, I'm not too worried about that, because George Bush did the same exact thing. I mean, and Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld, a lot of these people, they can't even go to certain countries because they have an arrest warrant for being war criminals. So,
he's alienating the world, not so much in working with them, but how serious people take America.
Yeah.
And people's opinions of American people, that you voted him to be your president, and it's like the world is watching. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, our stand on the world stage has been slowly declining.
That's probably what I'm getting at with that. But hopefully, like I said, if Bernie Sanders can get it to grips with it and get somebody alongside him, then the future will be a whole lot brighter.
Yeah, definitely. I think keeping along the little Star Wars metaphors we're going here, I love it. But actually, Trump actually became the Republican nominee, the official Republican nominee. It was May 4th, which is Star Wars Day. So I think it's
May the 4th be with you.
Exactly. So I'm pretty sure it's 100% confirmed that Trump is a Sith Lord. We just we know they come in pairs. We don't know who the second one is. Maybe Paul Ryan or.
We need a Boba Fett, somebody to come in. You know what I mean? just take him out. Somebody who's like got no scruples and just go, I'm taking you out. You know what I mean? It's no good.
And then we have Mike Pence and all sorts of things. So we'll see how it goes, and hopefully it does go on an upturn. And after this interview, man, I'm stoked to see you in the States when you're doing a show, and I'm gonna do another little live mini episode or something with you and Paul. Again.
Brilliant.
So yeah, that's gonna be fun times. So thanks so much for coming on the podcast and talking.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for listening to my thoughts on politics, and hopefully not offended too many people.
Well,
but
if it offended someone, that's all right, because then it made them think.
Yeah, well, that's what it's all about, and the track Kidology, that's what it's all about. That's what the whole theme of that song and album was about, is Kidology game, mind games, and and what you can achieve.
Yeah. So before I let you go, what's the best way people can find Kids on Bridges music online?
We're on Spotify, we're on Deezer, we're on Apple Music, we're on SoundCloud, or we're on Twitter and Facebook. If you ping us a message, we'd be more than happy to send you some free music. Just say you heard us on there, tweet us, send us a private message, and we'll get some tunes over to you.
Awesome. Well, hey, I'm looking forward in a few months. We'll see you out here in the States. And like you were talking about, this is a perfect segue. You did this is going to be the self-titled off of your latest album, Kidology. This is it. Yeah, the title track, Kidology, by Kids on Bridges.
The philosophy of kidology inspires me, all with the powers of the Greek. You can't touch me. What you feel ain't what you see. I can make rain taste like wine. Chickens walk like ducks and smell like swine. The sunshine is hazy where the medicine man raids me. I walk with my feet in the dirt cause I'm a voodoo baby. The roosters crow like crazy where the witch doctor raised me. Honey child, I'm a voodoo baby. I'm a voodoo baby. I'm a voodoo baby.
It's voodoo.
Thanks for checking out Punk Rock and Politics. If you enjoyed the show and the information brought to you, please subscribe and share the podcast. It helps us here at Punk Rock and Politics, but more importantly, it helps the featured bands gain exposure. Also, if you know any bands or musicians who would like to join the political mosh pit and have their music featured on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, please email us at punkrockandpolitics@gmail.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. And rock on, political junkies.
I think all our society is run by insane people for insane objectives.
Doing a better job of talking to each other. The left hand now knows what the right hand is doing.
Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.